It's the sentence every traveller dreads. Sorry, you won't be allowed to board the flight. This week on Fast Track, the red tape of travel paperwork. You fill in all the forms correctly and still get charged.
We turned up at the airport, all packed, backpacks on, and they literally told us we couldn't board the flight, took one look at the passport and said the visa was incorrect and there was a problem.
Simon Calder is here to investigate. Plus, we visit a tiny Mexican island in the Pacific, boasting some of the biggest shark action in the world. And
a travel planning app that you can really talk to, and the Supper Club sites that lets you dine in locals' homes. That's online check-in later in the programme.
and welcome to Fast Track. 30 minutes of travel, information and inspiration with me, Fiona Foster. Now here at Fast Track we know very well that travelling is not always the stress-free process that the glitzy brochures and the TV ads would have us believe. This week, as part of our special series of travel clinic investigations, Simon Calder sets about untangling the red tape that can ruin your holiday before it even starts.
It's the essential starting point for an international journey. Yet, from what you've told us here at Fast Track, the most basic document in travel can be a passport to nothing but stress and expense. Sarah Pattinson and her partner Philip Waterworth planned a 3-week holiday in India. For months they made elaborate plans to fly into Mumbai, explore the jewels of Rajasthan, then head south to the backwaters of Kerala and fly home from Cochin. And they followed all the correct procedures to make sure they each got a visa in good time.
All the confirmation that we've had from the visa issuing authorities is that the visa was valid. It was a multiple entry visa, so in theory allowed numerous trips in and out of the country.
The couple booked international flights on Qatar Airways from Manchester via Doha to Mumbai. But when they arrived at the airport to check in for their dream trip, airline officials noticed that the word Cochin was printed on their visas.
We turned up at the airport, all packed, backpacks on, and they literally told us we couldn't board the flight, took one look at the passport and said the visa was incorrect and there was a problem. We asked the staff, we said, can we just fly in? I had been to India before and we knew we had filled in our visa applications correctly. So we asked if we could just board the flight and take a risk, but they said no, absolutely not. There was a risk of deportation and they didn't want to take that risk.
Qatar Airways said the couple were denied boarding because their visa stated the point of entry into India as being Cochin, whereas they were ticketed to Mumbai. This could have resulted in the passengers being refused entry into India and Qatar Airways being fined for accepting them on board.
Your heart sinks. You've been looking forward to it for a long time. You think that your holiday is not going to happen, so just gutted.
To rescue the trip, they had to pay a fee for changing their destination to Cochin, then buy a separate flight onward to Mumbai to get back on track. In total, it added around $1,000, over £600 to the cost of the trip. So what's going on in this case? Well, it's always the passenger's responsibility to comply with international rules on documentation. But the couple did everything that was required of them. And Indian officials confirmed that their visas were valid for the intended port of entry, Mumbai. Yet Qatar Airways insists it is a requirement of the Indian High Commission that passengers can only be accepted to the point of entry into India as shown on their visa.
They're both blaming each other and, you know, we really had nowhere else to go. They were both not willing to accept liability. It was very frustrating knowing that you've paid out all that extra money for something that really, no matter whose fault it was, definitely wasn't our fault.
Qatar Airways refuses a refund and says the Indian High Commission is responsible for the couple's extra costs. But the Indian diplomats say the visa was valid for entry to Mumbai and it's the airline's fault. So we sought the opinion of a leading aviation lawyer about their case.
If the passengers can show that they were wrongfully denied boarding, then under EC Regulation 261/2004, they would be entitled to €600 per passenger.
What about the other costs they had, buying new flights, rearranging the start of their trip and so on?
Well, those kind of individual costs are going to fall outside the denied boarding regulation regime altogether, so they will have to depend upon the application of the carrier's conditions of carriage and what the common law has got to say on what happened to them.
So if a passenger is turned away for a flight and they believe that was unjustified, what options are open to them?
If you're faced with an airline which believes that it's correct and has the right to deny you boarding, there's probably not a great deal you can do on the ground. And it ultimately, I'm afraid, is a question of subsequently writing those letters, making clear that you know about your rights and trying to persuade the airline that they have an obligation to pay you. And if you don't get anywhere through the informal route, your final option is to go to court.
But before a court case could begin, the couple would need to pay a fee, adding yet more unexpected costs to their Indian vacation. The passengers did everything right, but with red tape, it's all too easy to go wrong. Passport validity is the main hazard. Many nations insist that you have 6 months remaining at the date you plan to leave the country. Make sure also there are blank pages for visa stamps. And leave time for visas. For some of the world's biggest and most alluring countries, such as Russia, China and India, the process of getting a visa can take weeks, so you need to apply well in advance. Consider paying an expert. Companies that process thousands of visas a year are going to know all the pitfalls and could save you a fortune. Meanwhile, Sarah and Philip have happy memories of their trip when it finally got underway, but they're also hugely out of pocket through no fault of their own. Here at Fast Track, we've done all we can to try to find a resolution. I'm afraid it shows the most meticulously planned dream trip can turn into a bureaucratic nightmare.
Simon Calder trying to remedy your holiday woes. And if you've got something you'd like him to investigate, do drop us an email at our usual address, fasttrack@bbc.com. Now, last week we ran a story from Iceland, where Anna Holligan was asking if eating whale meat while taking a whale-watching holiday was unsustainable.
Whale to me is just like any other fish, as I have said many times. And it's an income and it provides employment. If it were not sustainable, we would not participate in it. With the stock size and the quotas, you can carry on forever.
Well, it's hardly surprising that after we ran that, our inbox filled up pretty quickly. And if your emails are representative of your views, then none of you agreed with Iceland's approach to tourism. Molly from Trinidad and Tobago had this to say.
I am appalled and deeply disappointed with the tourists who visit to eat whale meat. Whilst it may be an Icelandic cultural practice, in spite of a number of whale species being endangered, it is adding insult to injury for tourists to eat whale meat as a curiosity.
Pulkit from India agreed, saying that
it's appalling that Iceland would promote whale meat sampling as a component of tourism. Encouraging people to indulge in such an environmentally unfriendly practice shows a lack of concern from the Icelandic government towards not only nature, but also its own fish farming culture.
While it was enough to change the holiday plans of Kay Slayton,
after seeing your programme about this issue, I will not be taking a trip that I plan to Iceland to view the Northern Lights. Instead, I will go to Canada or the Alaska region of the US.
Well, as ever, if you have a different view, then do get in touch with us via our usual email address, fasttrack@bbc.com, or you can post a message on our Facebook or Twitter pages. Now, let's have a look at what else has been making news in travel this week.
Visitors to the USA are facing major disruption to their schedules after a third of the country's federal workforce was placed on indefinite leave. Congress has failed to reach a budget deal, meaning all non-essential staff were told to stay at home, leaving parks, museums and other major attractions closed.
This is the main reason we came to New York City, was to see the Statue of Liberty.
We're coming from Paris in France, so we are really disappointed.
My son is back there too, and he's 7, and he's been wanting to go since February. He's been telling all his teachers and friends at school.
It's not known how long the disruption will go on for, but the previous federal shutdown back in 1995 lasted a total of 28 days. European MPs have voted against a move to harmonise pilot flying hours across all 27 EU member states. Under the changes, some pilots would have seen shorter flying hours, while others would have their flying times increased. A final decision now rests with a full session of the European Parliament, which will take place later this year. Tourists aboard one of London's duck tour boats were forced to jump into the River Thames after the amphibious vessel they were travelling on caught fire. 30 people were rescued by passing boats near the Houses of Parliament, but no one was reported injured. The company has suspended water tours and will be running a land-only service. And finally, China's National Tourism Administration has published a 64-page guide on how Chinese tourists should behave when abroad. The guidelines include not picking your nose in public, not urinating in pools, and not drinking soup straight from the bowl. China hopes to curb what it sees as an increase in unruly and uncivilized behaviour of its nationals while visiting other countries.
Time for a short break now, but when we come back, we'll be diving into the deep to explore Mexico's hottest new shark destination.
All the big stuff I could want. Sharks, mantas, the whole lot.
And Carmen will be here to tell you what happened to these trees.
Go on all in. Oh, that's a big one.
there, and welcome to Online Check-In, the fast-track guide to all that's trending in travel online and on your handset. I'm Carmen Roberts. Now, wouldn't we all love to have a personal assistant to arrange and book our travel? There's so much on the internet these days, it can be a case of too many choices. Desti is an iPad app that uses a Siri-like travel agent that understands context, tone and intent, allowing you to ask questions and get a tailored response. Though anyone with an iPhone will tell you, Siri doesn't always understand you, especially if you have an accent. Failing that, you can always type out your travel request, and Desti gives you the option to compile a shortlist. It can access your social sites too, and will tell you if a friend has stayed at the same place. You can then share your travel plans on social media or via email. Desti is only in the US at the moment, and it's purely an iPad app, which is very limiting. Is it just me, or is everyone getting lazy when it comes to planning holidays? Here's a site where your friends and experts can plan your trip for you. GoGoBot taps into your friends on social networks like Facebook, Twitter and Foursquare. So instead of posting a status asking friends where's a great place to eat in Shanghai, once you do your GoGoBot search, you'll see your friends' recommendations automatically. And if your friends haven't been where you're going, expert travel writers are on hand to help you out. The site and app can make bookings as well as keep a travel log including photos and restaurant favourites. This is all great stuff and could be really handy when planning a trip, but I dread having to sign up to yet another travel site and enter all my social media details and passwords. For me, when I travel, restaurant recommendations are invaluable, and even better when I can share a meal with a local. Eat With is hoping to become the Airbnb for supper clubs, with an online listing of people around the world willing to invite you over for dinner. For a small fee, you could enjoy a seafood lunch at a beachfront home in Japan, or indulge in a 9-course meal on a family farm outside Florence. And don't worry, an Eat With rep is sent to verify the host, check out the venue and food quality. Admittedly, it's not a full-on health and safety inspection, but you do have to apply to be a host. It's not the first site to put supper clubs online, so if you've used one of these before, let me know about your experience. Or just drop me a line if you've got any other handy travel website tips. The address is on the screen now. You can also get in touch through Facebook, or why not send us a tweet on Twitter. Here's one for all you adventurers out there. It's a new site that's an anywhere-to-anywhere search platform. So whether you're going from Jakarta to Johannesburg or Sydney to Seattle, Way to Go by ClearTrip lets you compare all modes of transport on the basis of price, duration and other factors like carbon emissions. The Indian-based site covers more than 5 trillion routes worldwide, including 2.5 million places. But where this site comes into its own is for local transit options in Indian cities like New Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore. Tweet of the week time now, and this eerie video was spotted on BBC Travel. If you're visiting Louisiana, beware of the swamp is my advice after watching this video uploaded by local emergency services. The sinkhole first bubbled and trembled last June, and then 2 months later caved in, swallowing almost 10 hectares of land. This latest video shows 25 trees being swallowed without a trace. That's what horror films are made of. And finally, here's the finished product of a Kickstarter campaign. Luke Shepard, an American student in Paris, took 3 months to visit 36 cities in 21 countries. He shot thousands of photographs and strung them together to produce Night Vision. Enjoy, see you next time.
Some great images there, and bonus points if you can name all 36 cities. Now, here's something you'll either love or will have you scrambling out of the water as quickly as possible. A small group of Mexican islands is rapidly gaining the reputation for big shark action amongst divers. Socorro is part of an archipelago some 300 kilometers west of Mexico. And John McIntyre, an underwater cameraman, went on an expedition for Fast Track to this remote and wild destination.
Cabo San Lucas, the popular Mexican resort at the tip of the Baja California Peninsula, where the Sea of Cortez meets the Pacific Ocean. We'll have just 10 days to explore the remote Revallagigedo archipelago, comprising Clarion, Rocca Petita, San Benedicto and the main island of Socorro.
So the plan is to dive 3 of these islands to find out if Socorro really does live up to its star billing as Mexico's very own version of the Galapagos Islands, at least as far as the marine life is concerned.
Our first port of call is San Benedicto.
This is the surface, and we have the point of the island.
Divers are fully briefed by experienced guides. As with the Galapagos, the undersea terrain here is unmistakably volcanic in origin. Strong currents and nutrient-rich seas provide a classic backdrop for adventurous diving. White-tip reef sharks abound on the rocky ledges. Close encounters with manta rays are also a big attraction. Next, we visit the smallest island, Rocca Petita, just 200 metres long and 35 metres high. Below the waterline, the diving is pure high octane. Sharks, giant tuna, huge schools of fish, the hunters and the hunted in a daily battle for survival. Socorro boasts 25 varieties of the shark family, more than almost anywhere else. Not least the spectacular schools of silky sharks, numbering in their hundreds, a wildlife drama like no other.
All the big stuff I could want. Sharks, mantas, the whole lot.
For me, is Socorro Island the best.
5 different kinds of shark at one spot. It's crazy.
Hardly surprising that Socorro is now compared with Galapagos and Cocos, equally renowned for their big shark action.
Extraordinary to think that this tiny volcanic rock in the middle of nowhere is home arguably to one of the greatest diving destinations anywhere on the planet. It's already protected and it's now in line for World Heritage status.
At Socorro Island, scientists use high-tech underwater sensors to record the movement of hundreds of tagged sharks, evidence vital to Mexico's case to UNESCO.
The idea is to prove that this shark corridor is quite important in Mexico and finally protect every single spot.
Shark numbers seem to be holding up despite continued illegal fishing, but dive operators who help police the islands feel more could be done.
Like all places in the world, we have issues, but I really believe that the Mexican government here is trying to increase the supervision and the consequences for illegal activities out there.
Estoy totalmente convencida que tener.
I'm completely convinced that having the status of human heritage will make the surveillance, control and conservation work required by the islands of the archipelago much easier.
De restauración que requieren las islas del archipiélago.
Mexico is confident that UNESCO will now decide in favour of Socorro being given World Heritage status.
John McIntyre reporting from Mexico's very own version of the Galapagos and a haven for possibly more varieties of shark than anywhere else in the world. And that's it for this week, but do try and join us again next week if you can, when we're off to the Riviera to see the very tiny but very wealthy Principality of Monaco.
The global recession hit the luxury yacht industry hard, and many of the super yachts that had been commissioned before 2008 simply never left the drawing board. But last year, 200 new billionaires were created.
We feel that the young generation now has the money to build yachts.
How young? What are we talking?
Certainly sort of in the early 30s, and yes, they're starting to enjoy yachting.
So will these new mega rich splash out on a luxury yacht and help save the industry? Find out more on Fast Track next week.
Do join us for that if you can. We do love messing around in boats. Sadly, I think they may be a little out of our price range. In the meantime though, don't forget you can keep right up to date with our travels on our website, which you can find at bbc.com/fasttrack, and from there you can follow the links to our Facebook, Twitter and Pinterest pages. Till next time though, from me, Fiona Foster, and the rest of the Fast Track team, wherever your travels take you next, have a great trip. Bye bye.